Buongiorno, mondo, and welcome back to 15 with Fosca, the podcast. My guest today is Fosca da Cierno.
You're hilarious, but who are you?
I'm Elia Nichols.
Elia Nichols. Wait, I have had you here on the podcast before.
It is true. It is true. But since your podcast is called Ask Fosca, and instead you always ask other people things, today, guess what we're going to do, Fosca?
What are we doing,
We're
Elia?
going to ask Fosca.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to ask you some questions.
All right, I'm down with that.
It's time.
It's time.
It is absolutely time.
But I also will want to ask you some questions. You know that, right?
All right, but I really would rather focus on you.
Okay. Well, we have to talk about you too, because it's been a while since you've been on the podcast and lots of stuff has happened. And I want to talk about everything you're doing, and we're doing stuff together. And it's funny because I have to call you to come on the podcast so we can actually sit together and talk.
Exactly.
That's how crazy busy we are, right?
Both of us, yes.
Both of us.
Which is great.
It's wonderful. No, we're doing great things. We're both doing like a lot. I'm very proud of us.
Yes.
If I think about the fact that we recorded a podcast this fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's now mid-May. And if I think about everything that the two of us have done since then, I'm kind of like, what? And then all the stuff that's coming up.
Right.
So it's good that we're sitting here today.
Changes, which is why I wanted to ask Fosca today, because you have gone through so many cool changes. So we'll cover me for a second if you want, and then we'll talk about you.
I do want to start with you, my dear, because when you came on the podcast in the fall, you were just coming off of this experience. You had just recorded your TED Talk. We spoke on the podcast about how you were feeling before, during, and immediately after. But now it was just published. And I have already told you this, but I loved, I was involved in the process. You tried it out on me a few times, and then I came to see it and I loved it. I told you how great it was live. And then seeing it again on YouTube, I was like, it's even better.
Aww.
So no, and I'm serious. And I tell everybody, I really consider you such a great example. Like, you really help people. With this talk, you really help people gain confidence, in this very limited amount of time. You give us all these tips and tricks. And I tell people, I think about Elia's talk all the time. As someone who speaks, I often find myself saying, oh no. But you've given us these wonderful tools to be more confident, to speak more eloquently, naturally in every situation, not only professionally.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what that's been like, how it's been in this very immediate aftermath, because when did it come out?
Yeah, it came out 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling so excited. So excited. I mean, it was really interesting because I think that I thought, and I think many people think that like a successful TED Talk will change your life. Putting one out and having it go viral. And mine did, because mine was chosen as an editor's pick by TED.com in New York. I mean, something like 0.001% of all TED Talks get chosen. Mm-hmm. And mine did, which was incredible. And what that meant was that a whole marketing campaign was created behind my talk by TED.com. So it was released late, which that didn't matter, right? So when it finally came out like 3 weeks ago, I think it got like 35,000 views in 3 days.
Wow.
Which is just insane.
It's phenomenal.
Insane.
Congratulations.
So amazing. But then I asked a few speakers that I have coached who have had successful TED Talks, and I said, how has your life changed since your TED Talk? And every single one of them said, well, it hasn't. It hasn't changed at all. And so I'm kind of processing this and figuring out. I would say that after I did my TED Talk in August, my life did change in some ways, because I think it's about changing like the energy, like you put yourself out there, you create new work, you get seen by different people, you bring different energy to yourself. And immediately I got a lot of people contacting me for new work or for different types of work. Mm-hmm. New companies, new individuals. So already just me doing it, I feel like changed the air.
I think so too. Yeah.
Which I'm sure you're feeling right now in your business, because you have done this podcast, you have put out a book we're going to talk about in a second. But it really does shift things, right?
It does. And I think, you know what? And this is something, mean, it's not like it's going away. It's
No,
there.
no.
And I've looked at it a couple of times. I looked at the comments. People are showing a lot of love because, as I said earlier, there are some like very, very amazing tips from you that you present in this really nice package. And so I think that's why I wanted to go back to sort of how you were feeling when we sat down in the early fall. And you were feeling, I think, then that energy. And so now it's like you're coasting, and that's there, Elia. It's not going to go away,
No,
and it's going to,
exactly.
and it's part of now it's part of your repertoire. It's part of your background. And maybe you'll, be doing another one. Before we go to me, tell me what is going on in your life now. So let's just do the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks have been, Sandy. I mean, I've told so many people, even new clients, like, I will talk to you after May 5th. And then, of course, May 5th came and went, and I'm still crazy busy. But so basically, the TED Talk came out 3 weeks ago. And boom, just lots of energy. I actually did have a few new clients reach out. Sure, people even that had been watching me for a while and said, "Oh my gosh, I really want to work with you." So that was exciting. Yeah. The comments did, there's some trolls out there.
People
it's
are
shocking,
awful, though.
but there are some beautiful comments
too.
That's
what I didn't look at the trolls.
One person was like, "Oh my gosh, this works." I literally tried it, and immediately people behave differently towards me. So
that's
it was
what I'm
really,
saying.
That was very powerful to hear and meaningful to hear. And then after that came out, I had just planned on my calendar a series of kind of gigs and performances that it was. So I had this insane week that was basically, I did a play. I did As You Like It, which was mixed with Aminta, which is this Italian play that was the predecessor to As You Like It. So Shakespeare took inspiration from Tasso to write to write As You Like It. So I had 3 roles in As You Like It at NYU with the La Pietra players. So I did that on a Wednesday. The Saturday morning, we had the next TEDx Fiesole, of which I was the co-host and had 3 speakers that I coached as speakers. So that whole weekend I was there. I was on stage for, I think, 8 hours on Sunday, as the MC, which was amazing and fun. So I just done this play, right? So I'm on a play stage, an actual like theater stage. Then I'm on a TEDx stage. Then the next week I was the moderator for this career day. And then I was, and I literally think I was on, and then I was Anna Maria Luisa de Medici in these monologues that I did. And then I was I did voiceovers. And I think in 1 week, I basically was on 5 different stages, even metaphorical, kind of like a podcast type stage. And played, let's say, 4 to 5 different roles with memorization involved.
Yeah, of course.
And that kind of compartmentalizing, of like, okay, now I'm going to leave all the lines I just learned behind. Ciao, ciao. Like, they're gone. And now I'm going to learn some new ones. And I'm going to memorize them and deliver them on stage. And now I'm going to leave all those behind and now do new ones. Changing my voices, changing everything, physicality. It was a bit schizophrenic.
I can imagine.
Exciting, thrilling. And now I'm done with that part.
But I have to say, when we did last speak, you were like, the acting, I'm going to put it on the back burner for now, blah, blah, blah. So it actually makes me happy, though, to hear, because that's your,
it's my identity. It's like a massive part of my...
and it's Shakespeare. And I just like
and Shakespeare's my favorite.
And I know it is. And so every now and again, and also with, NYU and the students, you're so committed, And so for me, that's like, it makes me happy to see you doing... like a really nice combination of all those things that make Elia. You're doing your coaching work, you did your TEDx talk, and now you're also, but you're still very much involved in the whole, TEDx thing. And but you're back to your love of acting. And so, it's been crazy.
Yes.
Like, I really do think that we had to, schedule a podcast so we could catch up a little.
Exactly. It's true.
But
it's true.
I wonder, so do you I'm just curious, because you've been doing now your public speaking for a long time. You've been doing your coaching.
I have to. Now, I started in 2019 officially, so that's 6 years.
So I think now it's like you're really seeing all of these,
oh my gosh, it's all the seeds that I've planted.
All the seeds that you've planted. Yeah.
And it's wild. I have clients in America. I have clients that have even moved and changed companies who are hiring me for their new companies. I have politicians, I have professors. I have doctors, I have researchers. I have a really interesting variety right now. I have lawyers.
Yeah.
So it's really cool and I've loved being able to do some keynote speaking,
Yeah.
which I never really imagined myself in. But I've gotten a lot of keynote speaking gigs recently. Like I did one in Madrid. I was flown to Madrid in February to be the keynote speaker for this pharmaceutical conference. And it was just very interesting and stimulating to put yourself out there in a different way, you know?
And I think that's what it is too. I think that sort of almost with not every day that passes, but almost, I think people are beginning to realize like, I mean, everything moves much more quickly. How you communicate is fundamental. Yeah. You say this, I mean, the TED Talk is hilarious because at the beginning, because the way you do it, it's whatever, no spoilers. But in other words, like it really does make a difference, people, you know, how you present yourself to the world.
And I think there's this new theme right now that AI is going to take over our jobs. So what jobs will remain? And what everyone keeps saying is the jobs that require creativity and soft skills. Well, public speaking and communication is soft skills.
Right.
All over the place. And AI can't do that.
No, not at all. And we need that more than ever. And it needs to be quicker than ever. And so that's why I also I sort of see things as being perfectly timed for you right now, right? Because the world really the world is changing quickly. We need to respond. We need to be better communicators. And, you know, this is not just professional. I mean, like
no, even on a personal level.
Right?
For sure, especially the new generation, you know.
That's where they have problems.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
They do. I was in this career day recently, and one of the speakers said to the high school students that we were talking with, you are the worst communicators of the last 5 generations because of the cell phones, right? And it's not necessarily even their fault, you know?
No.
I mean, we are the parents that are putting cell phones in their hands. But the truth of the matter is that now communication is done through a cell phone instead of done face-to-face like we're doing. Yeah. And their skills are absolutely lacking.
Yeah,
you know?
and they need help. And so I'm glad that working with young people, this generation in particular, they also suffered a lot because of the pandemic.
COVID,
that changed the way they socialize and stuff. But they also really need that. I think your work can so help corporations and companies that are having a lot of difficulty, having a hard time, you know, having all these generations communicate with each other effectively in the workplace.
Yeah.
And so...
But do you know, I always keep one university course. I teach at Syracuse University because I love to be in touch with that age. I think the university age is so interesting. I get to keep my finger on the pulse of the youth that are coming up, and I actually think I can really help them and make a difference. I mean, I see it. I see them walk, and I remember this semester I had a student who never looked up. Literally, when she was listening in the class, her eye contact was down. She never looked at other people. And one day I said, can we just talk after class? I said, listen, you are such a great student. You have a great brain, and you are really limiting yourself and imprisoning yourself from social situations and from greater success academically and professionally because you never look up. You don't make eye contact. And I said, this is the semester. You're already out of your comfort zone. You're already in Florence, Italy. You don't know most people here. This is the semester to work on that because I swear it will make or break you. And she, throughout the semester, grew so much. She went from 99% looking down at the ground to 10% looking down at the ground, right? That's life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm the same way as you. You know this. I mean, I've worked with college students for years, and that doesn't go away. And so, you know.
Well, and you have a daughter.
I have a daughter, so she keeps me. It's good that I have her because she really keeps me, like, she knows that I love to know what's going on. So she keeps me sort of abreast of what's going on in the world. But then I also have interns because I love young people and I love to help young people. Yeah. And I think my best interns actually are the ones, well, they're all communication students, so they're excellent, right? But so they have the communication thing pretty much down. It's the others that I worry about. For example, you know, kids who really just have a hard time not only getting up in front of a class and speaking, but maybe even talking to a professor, talking to fellow students. So you did a great thing by telling this student how to empower herself, because I think that's what it comes down to. And, you know, your TED Talk, your teaching, your coaching, you're giving us, you know, very tangible skills to make our lives better. And so I recommend that everyone absolutely check out the TED Talk, but also that, you know, we keep these things in mind. I think that I hear a lot of people who work in the corporate world talking about the disconnect between among the generations, let's say, because there are so many generations in the workplace for the first time. And, you know, for us, I think when our generation, which was, you know, not we were technological much later. So we had all of that. We had
I
that
agree.
and not even really thinking about it. It was just like a skill that we had.
Down.
Right. It was passed down.
You know what I think is, I think that this generation is not a very proactive generation. And I think that we can be the ones that are proactive with them. Because when you reach out to them, they are incredibly responsive, but they're not the ones that usually reach out.
Yeah.
But they desperately need it. They want mentors. They want, we think they don't because they're hidden behind their cell phones. That's not at all what they want. They're not that different from us, really. No. It's just that they have been allowed to be imprisoned and limited, in my opinion. Yeah. But when you reach out, they go, "Oh, yes, thank you. Okay," and then it's like the door's open and it never stops,
which is wonderful.
So I think we should encourage, honestly, everyone from age 30 and up with a little bit of experience to reach out when they see somebody that they can empower of the younger generations, because they don't have to be a lost generation. They don't have to be.
No.
But I do think it should be part of our kind of social responsibility to try and take it upon ourselves to mentor, to reach out and help them, and to mentor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think we both do that actively. And I just want to invite other people out there, because it's not only is it really good for them, it's really good for us. Yeah. It is so helpful to see how young people are thinking, what's important to them, and I have to say, like, my intern left. We recorded a special episode, which was a surprise to me. He had all these questions planned. It was so sweet. Aww. And at the end, he was just like, "Thank you so much for this." Like, think about how, he spent 3 months in Italy doing this podcast with me, meeting all these people, interacting with all these people.
Wow.
And
what a gift.
It's a real, but for me, like, I was in tears when he was saying, I was like, oh my God, it was really nice for me too. Because you realize how much, like, I always wish I had that. And I didn't really have it.
You didn't?
No.
I think I did. I had probably two great mentors of my life, and they radically change your experience. They radically change your path.
Yeah. And I think that's why I was actually just talking about this yesterday to one of my mentors, but he came to me much later in life, pretty much when I started the business. And I was saying to him, I was like, of course, I was like in tears. I was like, I think the reason why I'm so committed to mentoring young people is because I didn't feel like I had one.
Yeah.
I had important people in my life. Don't get me wrong. I had great professors, great bosses, but I don't feel like I got that kind of attention and love that I give to the people I mentor. And it fills me up a lot. Like, it gives me, it feeds my creativity. It stimulates me. It makes me feel great, So absolutely.
It does.
It really does. I'm a huge fan of mentorship.
So, Fosca, it's time to talk about you.
I've been trying to put it off, but I knew you were, I saw your little look, and I was like, all right, she's going to do this. All right, let's do it.
So, Fosca, I have a few questions to ask you.
Let's see if I can actually answer them.
Of course you can. So, Fosca, I hear that you wrote a book. Is this true?
It is true.
Tell us all about it. What's it about? What was the experience like? How did it all happen?
It's actually kind of an incredible story. And anyone who's listening, I am ready. I'm actually pitching the book actively. I'm looking for representation.
Amazing.
I'm looking for an agent. So something interesting.
To pitch it. What's it about?
Okay. So the book is set in Florence in 1995. It's a novel. And it basically traces the story of our young protagonist. Her name is Veronica Greco. She is an Italian-American student from New Jersey. She's also a singer. She attends an elite women's college outside of Philadelphia and goes to spend her semester in Florence, where she gets caught up in a love triangle, the underground music scene. She unearths a huge family secret that could change her life forever, even though it's not her family's secret. It's a fun romp through Italy in the 1990s, which was not the Italy of today. And I wrote it really quickly. I started it after Thanksgiving. And if you want, I can tell you it was a very poignant and powerful experience.
Yes, I would love to know what the process was. And how did you get the idea? I mean, is this autobiographical at all? Or was this just literally complete fiction?
Okay, it's fictionalized. It's a very romanticized and fictionalized account of my year in Florence. It's condensed in a semester because I originally thought I would be able to write a year. And then I was like, I was about 200 pages in. I was like, no, this is not going to work. So I already have a prequel and a sequel in mind. So this is how the book happened. I've always called myself a writer. I've always been a writer. And I've started probably, 10, 12 books in my life.
Oh.
I've been a writer since I won the Cricket Magazine Poetry Contest in 1980 when I was 10 years old.
That is dear.
Yeah, but I've been actually a writer before then.
Creative
writing.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, a lot of, I do my blog and my newsletter and stuff. And I'm starting to dabble in nonfiction now. And I actually am starting a new book.
Interesting.
So, but this is a novel. And what happened was I ran into somebody and I had told her, she's somebody in the publishing world. And I had said to her, I want to write this sort of memoir thing. And she was like, no, but you're nobody, basically. I mean, in a really nice way. She said, write a novel. So you have to imagine all this stuff is kind of in my brain, but it's not really like cataloged. It's all just like floating there because I'm doing my business and whatever, but I'm trying to cultivate the writing thing. Write a novel.
Like you felt a need to be creative.
Yeah, I stifled my creativity for a long time. The new book is about that. What happens when you're a creative person and you stop being creative for too long?
I think most adults stifle their creativity.
It's really dangerous.
Unless they've chosen a creative field, I think most adults, it is hammered out of you.
Or people, like I know a lot of people who do what I should have done and I didn't do, which was to kind of maintain a healthy balance if you can. But, what happened to me was like, super stressful career and, being a single mom and the divorce and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Starting a business. It's like, okay.
It's all encompassing.
Right. I stopped singing. I stopped writing because of course, I'm a singer. And so my protagonist is a singer. But anyway, so the book, I was very depressed after the elections. I'm going to be honest. I felt very sad. And I had a meeting with a writer friend of mine who's been spending time in Italy since the 80s, like us, 80s, 90s. And we had a drink and we were just chit-chatting and she was telling me about her old book and her new book, which has, neither has anything to do with my book. And we just started talking about Florence in the 90s. And something about that meeting, and she knows this, I've told her, and something about our meeting, I don't know, something clicked. And after that, I had a very bad Thanksgiving, very bad. I got very sad. And it was a combination probably of things. And so I just started writing. And I guess I felt like 1995 in Florence was a much happier place to be than right now, than today's world. And so I started the book, as I said, end of November, and I finished it on February 22nd. And I've just started pitching it. And that's pretty much the novel. It was fun to write. I always say it wrote itself. It was like dominoes falling down. Yeah.
I mean, were you structured in the writing? Like, did you wake up every morning and get 5 hours out or something? Or did it,
it wrote itself. I woke up every morning at 3 a.m.
Oh.
No, not with an alarm. My body wanted to write.
Oh, that's incredible.
And it was like, you can ask, Jada, you can ask, I was like, I don't know, it was like a frenzy.
They say that 3 a.m. is the time when you're closest to God, or it's when the distant, my meditation teacher is going to kill me for butchering this idea, but it's basically when the distance is the closest between kind of the, heavenly realm, whatever that is, whatever you believe in, right? And us.
Yeah.
It shortens. And so if you are accessing kind of a higher, energy or whatever you believe in or connection, that's why you wake up then.
Yeah.
That's literally what they say.
It was unbelievable. I think it was probably the most incredible experience of my life because I've been saying forever, I'm a writer, I'm writing a book, And then there was another writer friend of mine who said, and this was another powerful thing, but this happened everything was setting this up, right? I had a Zoom over the summer with a very successful writer who I was connected to. And she said to me, you know why I wrote the book? Because she wasn't a writer. She wrote the book after, based on her professional life. And she said, I was sick of being that person who said, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book. And so that conversation with Jamie, her name is Jamie Fury Higgins, that conversation with her, I was like, Jamie, I don't want to be the person writing the book.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because I feel like, especially when you become a mother and when you go down a certain career path, it really is, as we were saying, all encompassing. But you're not just that. And that's why it's been so painful for me to ever imagine closing the door to acting, because I've always considered myself an actress.
Yeah.
I always will be an actress. You've
Yeah.
always considered yourself a writer.
Always.
You've always wanted to. But what happens to our identity when we actually aren't doing that thing? I feel it makes me sad. It makes me feel repressed.
It was bad
like there's
for me.
wings that have been
No,
cut.
it was really bad for me.
So your wings have been let free.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful because I think what I did was, I didn't do it consciously, Elia. I didn't say like, okay, today I'm going to stop singing. Today I'm going to stop writing. No, life got busy. Like life got nuts. Yeah. And so, but I also think, and this is something that I tell people all the time about the book, in addition to the fact that I stifled my creativity for over 20 years, I became afraid to sing in public. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. And then I stopped writing, and but that's not true that I stopped writing, because there was a period when I have an anonymous blog that I wrote between my divorce and sort of like, I don't know, it was my dating. Like I've had a lot of fun. So I kept this anonymous blog about sort of dating and sex in Italy when you're in your 40s. It's fun.
Can we read
Yeah,
it?
you can read it. Yeah, I'll send you the link. It's anonymous though. But so I always wrote in times of, for example, trouble, or if I was depressed or sad or whatever. And of course at my job, I was always writing. It was academic writing. It was not creative, but I was always writing stuff. Yeah. Probably in 23 years, I don't even know how many pages, are there. But something clicked with the podcast. It was after a year or a year and a half of doing the podcast, I realized that telling other people's stories, listening to other people's stories, wait, I've got some stories myself. And so I actually credit.
And there's it's probably unblock you in some way, because there's active listening, but there's also an improvisation in podcasting. Like you can script a lot of it, but you don't. You don't script that much of it, right? No. And so you've trusted yourself and your voice.
Brava. So this is the thing. I want to tell everyone, this is what the new book is about. It's about a lot of stuff. But the message, the takeaway is, if you're a creative person, and I believe we all are, and you stifle your creativity for as long as I did, which is, I would say not the whole 23 years I was at Stanford, but, I would say, let's say 15, 16 years when I was a mom. Let's say from when I became a mom. It almost killed me. And I've always been creative. I was an actor, a singer when I was a baby. I've always been like this. Are
you singing again?
I am thinking about it. I don't have time. Like this, I sing all the time. Oh, I'm singing. No, at this big event at the end of the month for my clients. Yeah, I'm doing a guest. Can we hear
just a few notes
right now?
Yeah, why not?
Well, I'm going to be singing. I have to study it. I don't need to practice it, but I'm singing. These boots are made for walking.
Oh my God, amazing! Let's just hear it. Let's just hear it. Ready?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the words yet, but you keep saying na 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 na. Right? Something you can know all the rest.
Nice.
I have to study the words. Right. You keep saying na 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 na.
You're good.
And then something and all the rest. You ready?
Yeah.
These boots were made for walking, and that's just what I'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. See?
I love it.
We even sing on the podcast. Oh my gosh.
Genius.
So yeah, I'm getting back into it, but
I'm
you know
so
what?
happy
I'm
for
much
you.
happier writing. I love singing. Don't get me wrong. And
there's no need to put limits.
No, it's like
you can do both.
I am gonna do, and it's just a mindset. And then what happened is, when I started writing, and when I finished the book, I was like, I am an author now, and so it doesn't matter that nobody has said yet, okay, we want to publish your book. I wrote the book. And for me, as an almost 55-year-old woman who has pivoted and whatever, I was like, I wrote a 370-page novel, and I am so proud of myself because I've been talking about this forever. And no matter what, it's going to get published.
You did it.
I did it. And the thing is, I was talking to another writer friend recently, and she said, is it a one-off? Do you think it's a one-off? And I said, oh, no. As I said, I have a prequel in mind, a sequel in mind. It could become a series.
Amazing.
I'm dreaming of all sorts of things.
What genre is it? If you had to put something
it's a romance. You got to put things in nice boxes when you want to get them published.
Yep.
But between you and me, it's a romance. It's coming of age. It's, it's sweet. It's a book about love and beauty and friendship.
What do you think to target ages? Or
I
is
think
there not
everybody.
one? Okay.
I think everybody. I think it speaks to everybody. I think it's going to appeal to a wide audience. It's a great love story.
Amazing.
And you know what it's about?
If you had, can I just ask a quick?
Please, and I'll tell you
If you
last
had
thing.
to imagine the ideal publisher, who would it be?
Oh,
and we don't
gosh.
have to name names. We can even just imagine what they would offer, what would happen. Do you know what I mean?
No, I want this to be huge. I mean, I believe in this book. It's my baby. But more than anything, I think I crafted a world where I think people will be happy to be. It's a lot of fun. You know, there's a band. And so if you think about like, you know, those are fun. Think about, you know, books or films or TV shows that have that kind of like really cool vibe, you know, the cool kids, you know, the band. And then we've got the love triangle. But the book is a lot about friendship. But it's also about listening to your voice and doing what you love, following your heart, and that it's okay to be confused, like that it's okay to not know what you want to do in your life when you're 20. And so for me, I think the book is for anyone who really wants to just get caught up in a great love story, travel to Florence back when it was so different. There's a lot of food porn. There's a great sex, I think. I mean, nice sex
so
scenes.
Much fun. This could be a good movie.
Yeah, well, I have like...
All right, so let's put it out there. I believe in law of attraction. What would the ideal publisher be? Who?
Somebody who would really, really treat it like with the love that I think it deserves. It's not the typical, a publisher who isn't afraid to take a chance. This is not Under the Tuscan Sun. I would love for it to be Under the Tuscan Sun. This is a book.
It sounds grintoso.
It is. And it's also about somebody who really penetrates the scene, you know, the underground music scene. I mean, she sings at squats. She sings at, you know, there's a competition. They enter a contest. So there's the battle of the bands. You know, there's a lot of layers. And then, of course, she's studying. So it's fun. There's a lot of art. There's a lot of beauty, as I said, a lot of food. So I think it's a fun read. And so the ideal publisher would love me and love the book. And then I'm happy to work as hard as I work all the time anyway. Right. So I'm happy to promote myself. I already have a podcast. And so we already have a platform. So any publisher out there who's interested, I'll happily
contact Fosca.
I'll do all the work.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us about what else. Do you want to talk about your next book?
So the next book is a little different. It's somebody who suggested to me that I do talk about my personal experience and to help others. And so why maybe it took me so long to pivot, but that I did. And so ideally, I'd like to help people who might be struggling a little with why they're where they are as opposed to where they want to be. I've been through kind of a lot of shit and professionally and personally. And I really would like to help people get out
and
of
yet you're
things.
so resilient, right? So this is a book of resilience.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Empathy.
Yeah. And also just but good practices, like what we were talking about. Like, what are the things that save you though? Right? Like creativity, friendship. Like, for example, friendship as moms. Like like one of the things I love is talking to younger women and older women about this journey that we're on, whether we have kids or not. Do we want to have them? You and I talk a lot about reconciling motherhood with our busy careers and the fact that we're both kind of social butterflies too.
Right.
And so I want to help. Like, can I help other people? I think I can. I think I do already, you know? And so maybe, so why don't we put that in a pretty little.
You've been so supportive in the Florence community of the women around you. It's incredible the energy that you have put, the generosity and energy that you've put out there. And you've radically changed so many women's lives. I know so many amazing women because of you. And I've known you for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's just because I feel like people need that. And there's another huge project, but you and I have to talk about that off mic because that's going to be huge.
No, let's talk about it now.
No, but not really. But I can talk. It's in this theme. In other words, it's the theme of how can you and I help all these creatives and entrepreneurs.
Is this the retreat in November?
This is the November retreat of which you are also a part. And my good friend and partner in this is Mary Shea from Quartetto di Castellina, another former podcast.
Some of the best rosé wine I have had in a long time.
Right. And Mary and I had this idea that we wanted to sort of do a revolutionary retreat. And we are working with Exclusive Connection, a luxury travel agency. They're also my podcast sponsors, about we've crafted this beautiful retreat that really focuses on Renaissance humanism. So the idea behind it is that you sort of rediscover all those things that you already have inside yourself. And this kind of goes back to our conversation earlier about creativity, et cetera. This is a way to really find balance again in your professional and personal life by sort of embracing the principles of the Renaissance. So it's a retreat that's dedicated to beauty, to art, to brainstorming, to writing, to sketching. We'll be doing a session with you on body language. We'll be doing a session with Sandrine about slow life and digital detox. There are all these wonderful partners involved, Julia from Laclit. So it's sort of recalibrating yourself and understanding that maybe returning to those ideas that really epitomize the Renaissance can help us in our daily lives. I think we've lost a lot of that humanity.
Absolutely.
And this goes back to what you were talking about earlier about also your work, not only with young people, but in general. It's hard for us to have conversations with people about important things. This is conversations of value. I'm talking about big stuff. I'm talking about love.
It takes
success,
courage and gumption.
Yeah.
I have noticed today that people are so wimpy. They literally won't just get the gumption to say, I need to talk to that person. I need to clarify things. I need to ask.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear, but really, they're not complicated conversations if you have the courage to just go and have them.
Right.
And then you clear the air, and then you can actually talk about politics again openly instead of it destroying us.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's and I think because it's such a divisive moment, this is why we need this kind of thing, because we're losing ourselves, right? And I think the reason why this was so...
and we're living in pain.
We're living in pain.
There's a lot of pain.
Brava. That's exactly why. And so the idea of this retreat is let's spend 3 days and really do wonderful things that will and let's talk it out. Let's brainstorm. Let's walk. It's a lot of time in nature, time in museums, time with interesting people, having
it's just
good
time
conversations.
Exploring the values that allow the Renaissance to happen,
basically. And realizing that maybe when we apply those things in our daily lives, our lives are better. You said it perfectly. You're like, we're in pain. The last event is all dedicated to pleasure. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
So sign up. You can DM me for more details. It's mid-November, and so we are working on it. It's a pilot, but we hope that it'll become the kind of thing that we do with frequency, and it's
annually.
Related to a lot of stuff you and I are doing together with our with groups of women, other partners, et cetera. So
the target audience for that retreat is Italy lovers, right? It's expats, locals that want to live their best life as a Renaissance humanist.
That's right.
Basically,
that's exactly it. So anyone who's interested, and we're going to be putting out this podcast will come out end of May, and we'll be putting, hopefully shortly thereafter, everything will be out, and and the whole thing will be begun.
Incredible. Okay, I have another question. You told me that this is the last episode of this season. Is that correct?
That I'm recording.
That you're recording. So I just want to talk about this podcast. Like, has this podcast brought any changes in your life? And are there going to be changes in the new podcast in the fall, in the new season?
In the new season. Yeah. So the podcast is, I love this podcast. If I could, this is all I would do. It's changed a lot of things because now I was a guest on a couple of podcasts. It's something that I'm exploring a little more now. Which
podcast were you guest on?
I was on Jo Piazza. She's an American author and podcaster. She's pretty famous. I was on her podcast. I was also on the Seven Sisters podcast, which is a podcast that brings together women who've graduated from one of the Seven Sisters colleges. And now I've reached out to a pretty well-known Italian-American podcast. It's called Growing Up Italian. And I've asked them, they haven't responded yet, but they've put me on their mailing list. I'm getting a lot of spam. I asked them, I was like, hey, you interview Italian-Americans. Like, why don't you interview me? And I'll interview you. So one thing I've started to do is, and this is something that will happen in the new season, I'm moving a little away from my Italy niche. So I'm going to keep my Italy niche, but I'm also going to bring in some more international guests.
Great.
I'm also going to focus a little more on writers and creators. I've always done that, creatives and writers. But I'm also trying to sort of move the podcast a little bit in the direction of my authors, podcast because now I am an author, even though I'm still waiting for people to, publish my book, but I am an author now. And so I have a nice list of people that I will be inviting. And some are, guests that I'm going to have back, that I hope to have back. But really, I want to bring the podcast to a larger audience. I want to take it out of its little Italy niche, keep it in there for some things, but also just say, hey, I know a whole bunch of interesting people. Like, let's hear what they have to say. Yeah. So I would say my main goals are, increasing my reach. And then also just getting my voice heard as an interviewee, not only as an interviewer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is why we're here today. Are there any other things that you're working on? And what does your summer look like?
Oh my gosh. Right now, I'm working on a huge event for clients. It's a 3-day festa at the end of this month.
Amazing.
And it's huge. And I'm super excited. I adore them, and I love what we're doing. It's just a great program of events. And this is kind of very similar to what I used to do at Stanford. So I've always loved event planning and things like that. So I'm in like my happy place. I'm like paying attention to all the little details and stuff. Like I'm made for this kind of work.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm dreaming about the summer. I have to be honest with you. Like, it's been a lot. So I've been recording and putting out at least a podcast a week.
Which is insane.
In addition to all the other stuff I'm doing. So like my consulting work, my volunteer work, being on the board here, doing this and that. It's a lot because every podcast is not just like record. It's a lot. Anyway, so the summer is going to be great because I'm recording the last podcast with you today of the season. The new season is going to start, I think, October. I haven't come up with a date yet, so I'm going to be on hiatus. Nice. And the podcast will be on hiatus. Obviously, I'll do some recording.
We'll miss it. We'll miss you.
But the episodes are there. Like your TED Talk, they're there. And it's actually, it's nice for me because people are like, I ran into people recently and they were like, oh my God, I'm behind in your podcast. I'm like, it's okay. I'm going on hiatus. It's summertime. You can just be, driving in the car, whatever, you can catch up. And I've realized that it's hard for me to be creative. For example, I wrote the novel when the podcast was on hiatus.
Exactly.
And so because I'll tell you,
I really believe that you have to carve away those moments that are not a day, but, that are a week or 2 or 3, right? Where you can just let the creative juices kind of flow again. Mm-hmm.
And you know this when you were writing your TED Talk because
I did it in the summer.
You did it in the summer. I remember very well our conversations. And so so ideally that's what this summer will be. So this is sort of an atypical summer for me. We're going to the U.S. at the end of June. We're doing the tail end of our college tour. Thank God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is exciting. And I love it. We had such a good time last summer, Jada and I. We were 2 girls on the road. And this is going to be less distance, fewer colleges. And then I'll sit on the beach for a couple of weeks. We'll be back in Italy like mid-July. My daughter's turning 18.
Oh my God.
So this is the summer of college applications, driver's license, and she also has to start preparing for the maturità because in Italy, there's like this huge exam at the end. So this is going to be a fun year. So my summer, I'm hopefully, since I am on hiatus, I'll obviously be recording some episodes, but I really want to dedicate it to my writing. Yeah. I want to think about the new season of the podcast. I already have a nice list of guests that I need to invite, of course. But, I've mentioned it to people.
Yeah,
and as I said, I am bringing it to I want to, interview some of these writers that have been so important to me in writing my book. Yeah. These people that I just had casual conversations with and somehow something clicked. Because I also believe, Elia, like when this is why I think the podcast has led to all these other things. When you're with other creative people and you talk to them and you're just like even near them, like you and I, like we're just near each other. Do you know what you and I could do if we had a little more time? Like I don't even want to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that I want to do more of that. Yeah. Like I want to have more, also because I think we need that now more than ever.
No. I learned very young as an actress that work brings work, right? Like, but you have to, at least when you're a creative, you have to sometimes create it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You have to put it out there yourself. And then people see you. And then it attracts more work, right? Which is what you've done.
And this is what I've been doing.
Podcast.
Exactly. Brava. And so it's interesting because we're celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the podcast in July.
Wow.
And so
How many episodes total?
Oh, my gosh. Right now, we're at, I think, 60. I think I just published 60.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I think I just published my 60th. And so by the end of the season, we'll have 65, 66.
You should be so proud.
I'm exhausted.
That's enormous.
I'm exhausted, but I'm thrilled. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's a labor of love. But another thing and then we have to kind of tie things up. But I want to tell you this one thing because I think you'll like it. The reason why I wanted to have this slight shift in the podcast, it's not going to change. The name will be the same, but let's say I'm just diversifying within, I'm diversifying within. I have recently come into contact with a lot of old friends, which has been wonderful. It's been incredible. Like my Florence roommate, who, she's in the book in some way, they're all, anyway, friends of mine from high school. And those conversations have been so precious to me and I realized, God, I know all these super interesting people are doing super interesting things. Come on the podcast and let's talk about where we are in our lives right now, how our kids are doing, how our creative process, how we're finding time to cultivate those things as adults, right? These are people I'm in touch with guys I used to play with in high school. They were my band. They find time to play and they're still creative. They're still recording. Why did I stop, Yeah. So in other words, conversations like that.
It must be inspirational too,
I love
to
it.
Connect and see what people are doing at this point.
And also just going back to even with one of these friends, we weren't even that close in high school, but he also just wrote a novel. And so this mutual friend put us in touch and said, I think you guys should be talking. And so now we're helping each other pitch our books. He read mine, I read his, and now, we're going through the process together and we're helping each other. And I think the moral of the story here is that we really need to be a community, guys. And you and I think this is a really nice way to end this episode, but I think that going back to the conversation about being a mentor, giving back, but also how important it is that right now in this moment in time, we are so divided. We need to be helping each other, talking to each other. We do this as a community. We do this. We cannot, we all have our talents. We all have our skills. But man, when we get together, what can we not do?
Yeah. And also they've proven that when you give to other people, that the generosity, the generosity of spirit, it repays you so much more. There's so many studies that have been done about this, right? That's what's going to bring healing and good back to the world.
Yeah, and it already, I have to say, bottom line, and I'll end on this because it's something that you and I are really committed to, the both of us. But one of the things that I was so happy about when I left my former life is that I now had the time, because I'm a freelancer, to dedicate myself to those things that are really important to me, to the things that fill me up. So, volunteering at Progetto Ithaca, working on the board of the Women's International Network. You and I also have these dinners once in a while where we get a bunch of really cool women of all ages, all nationalities together.
Sectors and industries.
Right, just to help each other, to network, to brainstorm. And so really I feel great right now. I feel like everything, 2 years into the business, things are coming together and let's hope that, now we start seeing all the other, all those other rewards, the fruits, darling.
Effort.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being the guest on your own podcast today.
Well, thank you for doing my job so well.
Of course, darling. Of course.
And I want you to come back on the new podcast.
I would
because
love to.
I just want, and I'm closing with this, because something that I really think would be a valuable conversation for others to hear from us is how we do it. Would you be interested in coming on and telling me how you continue to be a successful businesswoman, a wife, a mom, a creative person, a friend?
And continue to be stimulated and grow in all this.
Exactly.
Because that's not always
Can we do that?
easy.
Can we
I would
get
love
something
that.
on the, I think I'd like to have you come and be my you know how I listen and watch a lot of listen to and watch a lot of podcasts, and there are frequently these kinds of nice winning combinations of people, and I think we could, once in a while, just talk about something. I'm so happy you came on the podcast today because we got to catch up a little. I've missed you. We're too busy.
I have too. I agree. And would you like to end your own podcast today?
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for everything you do. I'm so glad I met you. And seriously, you and I knew each other kind of whatever. I'm so glad we met each other. It's a really valuable relationship. That's what I want to do. I want to have conversations of value with people of value.
Yeah.
And I love you. I love you. I love spending time with you. I love you too. It's a very stimulating friendship for me, because we're both creatives and we're both out in the world. We're just very similar in certain ways. And you're just a great sounding board for me. And we work really well together. So thank you.
And you have this amazing brain that explodes with ideas and possibility all the time.
Too much.
You know?
Like, it's too much now, though. Let's take the summer. Let's have a nice summer, nice relaxing summer. And then in the fall, I can't wait to have you back on and we'll catch up and we'll talk about some themes that are important to people. Va bene?
So to all of the listeners out there, we wish you a happy summer.
Yes. And see you in the fall.
And see you in the fall with 15 with Fosca, the podcast.
Grazie mille e alla prossima volta. We even sang.